it's that weird thing that tends to happen in my life, and has always happened enough that I'm sort of used to it, which is I will do a bunch of stuff over a long period of time, and then it will all come out together. So, I mean, the script for Beowulf, somebody wrote me a letter the other day to my blog telling me off for doing Beowulf and saying, why don't you get back to writing novels? You shouldn't have written this. And I thought, where were you in May 1997? Which was when the script for Beowulf basically was written. And Stardust, I didn't have to write. That was kind of fun. I shepherded it. I looked after it as a kind of, no, I wrote an article for The Guardian the other day, and
that's for me.
It is, although it's not actually, not personally, yes.
Not personally.
But I wrote this article, and it was odd, because one of the things I love about writing is that I find out what I think. Most people think that you know what you think before you sit down to write, and you write it. And that may be true for lots of people, and it's completely not true for me. The reason I wrote American Gods was to find out what I thought about America. And I wrote this Guardian article about fairy tales, and about why we retell them and what they mean, and what the telling of fairy tales is about. Really, I think because I was asked. And they said, would you do us an article? And would you do us an article about fairy tales and the way that they last? And I thought, that's an interesting thing. I started writing it. And I realized as I got toward the end of the article that the reason why I like the film so much, even though the film absolutely differs from the book in lots and lots of crucial ways, is that the film feels to me like a retelling. It feels like Matthew Vaughan and Jane Goldman loved the story and then told it, as opposed to adapted it. And I think that's something that's really kind of, it's so much part of the fairy tale tradition. Neil Phillips, in the Penguin book of English folk tales, points to a story called The Pear Drum, which was collected by folktale people in I think about the 1930s, about the point where they started going out with notebooks and collecting. And it was collected and listed in the English Book of Folklore and stuff, and they commented on it and the strangeness of this peculiar fairy tale, very sort of haunting, slightly nightmarish tale. And none of them noticed that it was actually a story written by a lady named Lucy Clifford about 50 years before, which had simply entered the oral canon. It was this rather nightmarish story called The New Mother, you can find online, and may well have been one of the inspirations for Coraline. But I love the idea that sometimes you can write something that feels enough like a fairy tale, feels enough like folklore to get retold. And it makes me happy. When I set out to write Stardust, I wanted to write something that felt like you'd always known it. The idea of a young man who promises his beloved that he will bring her back a fallen star. And when he finds the star, discovers that it's not a lump of meteoric rock, but is actually a young lady with a broken leg in a very bad mood who really doesn't want to be dragged halfway across the world and presented to anybody's girlfriend. And the fact that they have to travel together, and there are things and people after them. It's really odd that we're here, because this is when we leave, which we will do in an orderly fashion. They will start ushering in people to come and see the 39 Steps. And the 39 Steps was one of the film, not the book, was actually one of the things that I had in my head when I started writing Stardust. Just the idea where Robert Donat and Madeleine Carroll hate each other and are handcuffed together on the run. And I thought, I want that kind of, I want it to feel a bit like that.